So friends, now that we know a few details about Gilman's life, so we are qualified, we are to talk about the story that is our subject today. Let's start with this comment by Gilman about this story, and the statement is significant, and it will actually cause raising of eyebrows, because she, even so though she doesn't show much of sense of humor, but there is that wit there in this particular statement, and the statement is about and it throws light on the story, the yellow wallpaper. Gilman had once said that she wrote the story not to drive people crazy, but to save people from being driven crazy. What does it mean? It means that she didn't want to send across the message of madness to the people, so that they follow the example and become mad, particularly women. If you start telling women that they are mad generally, and they suffer from madness, they suffer from insanity, then it might have that kind of negative effect on the mind and sensibility of women. And that's why she had to make it clear that her job was not to drive people crazy, but to save people from being driven crazy. Who are the people? She has used the word people twice in this sentence. I think by people she means the female community. That she doesn't want that after females have read the story, that they will think that there is a seed of madness or insanity in them. In fact, she would expect people, particularly women, to learn that there is a way not to feel and not to be driven crazy if one reads such a story. I think it's a very positive statement. It becomes a kind of a wall between insanity and the woman, and insanity is something that you can't make sense of, whatever you see. But the sanity means that you are able to understand insanity, and you can fight it out, you can come out of it, and you can avoid if insanity or craziness in future. So she's preparing in such a way, and that is, I think, there behind this story. If you read it carefully, if you read between the lines, if you think 2 or 3 times after you have read the story, then you would realize that it throws light on some kind of insanity. But then she is recognizing it as a fact, and she is creating a strong character out of the illness that the woman suffers from. So this sentence is to be kept in mind. I think this is a central sentence about the story. If you keep it in mind, then you'll be able to see the true worth of this particular short story, and that's what is the purpose of quoting it here. Why did it say so? I raise this question for you. Please go into it. The story avoids people from becoming crazy. And I raise the question again. Was it thought that the story promoted the view of insanity? I believe that would have been the case. Maybe some critics pointed out in the early part of the 20th century that the story gives wrong kind of ideas, wrong kind of impressions to the readers, and particularly to women, and therefore one should think twice before publishing it. In the discussion earlier, I said that there was a gap of 28 years between the writing of the story and its first publication in the 1920s. Why did the publication take so long? And my guess is that people did not want to let this view go across to the readers that women can suffer from this kind of insanity from which they think that there is no cure. Actually, women never thought so. Even at that time, men thought so. And men were being very overbearing at that point of time. They were very insensitive. That comes out in the story. So maybe it was the male view. And the press, the industry of publication, all those things would be guided by the males. They were owned by the males. And if a woman writes, then men would feel threatened. They will read things many times over before they let it be known to the readers, and they decide. So that's why I think it took 28 years for the story to see the light of day. And later on, when women became strong, when education reached them, when they started discussing, when they started relating their existence vis-a-vis male domination, and they found ways to, they invented strategies to counter the threat from the males, that they realized that the story was in fact informed by ideas of sane living, sensible living, and fighting whatever threats came from the society as a whole. The early readers of the story then might have thought that was the case. So this is the point that I make, that initially the writer and the story particularly had to bear the weight of the prejudice, and when that prejudice became weaker, then only the story came to us in true colors. In the yellow wallpaper, the middle class woman protagonist uses the first person singular and remains unnamed. Now, two things are important. It's a woman of the middle class. She is not a working class woman. She is not the upper class woman who owns resources and all those things. She is a middle class person. The husband also works somewhere as a doctor, and the woman is. But the problem about this woman is that she is not given a name. So you just do not know. And why? Why is it that the writer does not give the name of the woman, and he says she, or he says, and later on, because the writing is in the first person singular, it's using I all the time. So it's an account of this woman who is not given a name. Now see the quandary. The quandary is that if the woman is talking, and she's talking in her own voice, I said it, I saw it, I observed it, I felt it, all through. It's a long story, and it's the account of the woman, and she's talking about herself, and she's talking about her problems, and she's talking about what she thinks about the men folk surrounding her. Therefore, such a woman should be given a name, but she is not given a name, and the reason is simple. The reason is that women would not be recognized as important. They would be recognized as women. That woman, this woman, I met a woman, and the woman went away, and she came back, and all those things. So naming a woman is important. I think the whole lecture can in fact be planned about why women are not called by their name. In the 19th century, women could not be tolerated as persons with names. I don't have to go into it, but then in this story written in the last decade of the 19th century, the woman does not have a name. This lends depth to the story and appears deliberate. The writer is deliberately taking this strategy, because the woman without a name, which means she would then not be placed among a particular set of people at a particular under a particular category of women, and she would in that sense intellectually, ideologically relate to all the women in America. At the same time, all the women in the 19th century and before, all the women in the 19th century and later. So it's a kind of mythical woman that the protagonist of the story might become in the process, that she is referred to not with a name, but with that I which she is using in order to make her points clear. It suggests that the protagonist stands for all women, and this is the point I have made, and what she thinks and states is an attack on the males for being condescending in their attitude towards her. How do males approach her as a woman? Which woman? Well, the woman. That's what they will say. What do they say? Oh, they don't say anything. They merely observe. They tell her to follow a particular thing, and she keeps on talking about herself. So it's that kind of a story. So instead of going into the message of the story, let's also see the form of the story. The form of the story is that a woman talks, and nobody listens to her, and nobody gives her any sympathy, but she doesn't stop talking. This is the aesthetic of the story. This is the form, that the woman will think, she will talk, nobody will agree with her, but she will not stop. So that kind of a story, and from the point of view of form, is quite important. They means men, wish to bring her back to senses. This is condescending. You look down on her. You are superior as males, and you think that this woman has lost her senses and she has to bring back to mental health. Now, who has decided this for this woman? Men have decided, the husband has decided, the husband's brother has decided, the neighbors have decided that the woman has gone mad. She is insane, and their job is to get her back to senses, and senses also the other is that she is nonsensical. The husband John, he has a name. He is not in the story. He just talks once or twice in the story, but then he is there. He has a name, John. The husband John is a physician and is accompanied by his younger brother to stress the supposed sanity as the goal to achieve by women. He is a doctor. He has already diagnosed her. She is insane. She is there is a state of mind which is called neurasthenia. That the nerves are weak. The nerves have to be made strong. The nerves have to become healthy. Until that happens, the woman will not be able to think properly. This is neurasthenia, weak nerves. So, and neurasthenia is a big word. It's also a Latin expression. It's very impressive, neurasthenia. You say and you read it, and then it appears to be a serious disease. But who has invented this word? A male physician, a male, health specialist. He has, invented this name and stuck it on the woman's body. She is on the woman's mind. She is insane. She is a neurasthenic. She suffers from neurasthenia, and that way, what she requires is some kind of medicine, and more than medicine, she requires rest. A woman would require perhaps comfort. She would require love. She would require compassion. People should agree with her and try to understand her problems as a human being. That is not the concern of the husband or the physician. The concern of the husband is to give her rest. And how do you give a woman rest? That is what is the crux of the story. The woman is given rest entirely from the beginning of the story to the end of it. And that rest actually is rusting her, is making her completely immobile, is making her static in her existence, and that's a kind of cruelty that human beings generally, and husbands in particular, can impose upon women, can give this cruelty to the women as a part of punishment. The husband John is a physician and is accompanied by his younger brother, who also agrees with him, to stress the supposed sanity as the goal. So please become sane. That's what they are saying to the woman all the time. And just by saying that she should be sane, can she become sane? This is a question, and it has a great deal of irony in it. I said in the beginning that the woman may not have an ostensible sense of humor, but the way she ironically presents things shows that she has a great sense of understatement. Sometimes she gives pauses, sometimes she uses soft words, but the softer the word, the stronger it becomes. So that kind of a trick, that kind of a skill the woman has, and it comes from high social sensitivity. A great ancient mansion, secluded from the life of the city, is chosen for the woman to stay. She will not be in touch with other people. So already on rent for 3 months, let's say, a mansion has been taken, and she will be kept there. Why? Because she requires rest. There she will remain calm. There she will not hear voices. There she will not be disturbed by anyone. And lack of disturbance, absence of disturbance, and staying away from others, and giving her complete body rest, that is going to cure her, is the strategy of the males in the story. How far is that true? Today's psychologists and doctors and physicians would not agree with this. They would say that such a woman should be actually given company of the loving family, the children and others, and she should be given a sense of purpose, and that will bring sanity back to her if she has lost sanity. But people in the 19th century thought that you give rest to the woman in any way you like. You decide what is the way to give rest, and then she will recover. She would recuperate there from her illness. The illness is of not responding to the surroundings conventionally. to handle her case, the verbal strategy that the husband John uses is exemplified thus. So I think we should try to understand what kind of treatment, what kind of strategic step the men are going to take, so that she can be recuperated. She can recuperate from her condition of ailment. So this is the important thing, and I think it's very cruel of men, of males, of the doctors, the physicians, and it's a kind of seclusion, but I would call it a kind of jail that she is kept, in a solitary cell, and that's supposed to be conventionally the kind of rest that she requires. I read this particular excerpt of the story to make you understand as to what I mean by the cruelty of men here, and how the woman is able to take care of the step that these people have already used to placate her, to give her sense of peace and harmony. See, there are dialogue. The place is doing you good, he said, the husband doctor, and really, dear, I don't care to renovate the house for just a 3 months rental. In one sentence, in one breath, he has said so many things. First, the place is doing you good. How does the woman know? How does the man know? How does the man know that his wife knows it? So it's all knowing. The husband knows, the wife knows. It is absolutely certain that the place is doing you good. And is it doing good? If you read the story from the beginning till the end, you realize that the place has totally isolated her from human company. So the place is not doing good to her at all. But then the man is firm in his belief that the place is doing you good. So he says, you know it, I know it, the place is doing you good. And really then, dear, he says, I don't care to renovate the house for just a 3 months rental. What is this to do with treating her? Perhaps she has asked for renovating the house, making it clean. The paper of the wall, paper covering the wall is old, is brittle, is falling, and the wall requires some kind of renovation and whitewash. But then maybe she has said it somewhere, because she is talking only unto herself. So he says, I don't care to renovate. Why? What's the problem? And he used the word, I don't care. So he is very that way, rude to her, to say that he doesn't care to renovate. He doesn't need, there is any need, and don't care is a very harsh word. For just a 3 months rental, he has taken the place on rent for 3 months, and for 3 months, why should he waste money? Now imagine, what kind of a man is he? He is a doctor. He is supposed to help his wife come back to a kind of mental state where she can breathe easy, and he's thinking not about anything except giving her rest at a place that she doesn't like. She is on the first floor, maybe she wants to go to the ground floor, but even that is not important for him. And because he thinks that if he spends money on getting the house renovated only for 3 months, then he'll lose money. So money is important, and he doesn't care about the requirement of the woman. So that kind of a cruelty the 19th century woman would face, and well, definitely Gilman is on the side of the woman, if not projecting her own self in a society which doesn't care for any kind of facility being given to women. Then he says, then let us go downstairs. I said, I don't want to live here on the first floor. Let's go downstairs. And she says it very mildly. It's just a 5-6 word long sentence. I said, she's telling whom? She's telling, I think, us, or she's telling a person who is not present there. There are pretty rooms there. Now this is humility, to the core, because this kind of humble statement. Well, let's go downstairs. She's not saying, please take me there. I want it. She just says, let's go down there. There are pretty rooms there. which also means indirectly that, that the room she is put up in, that is not pretty, that is not comfortable, that doesn't meet her requirements. So this is the voice of the woman. His voice is, I don't care. His voice is, I know. He says, it is doing you good. And the woman says, let's go downstairs, there are pretty rooms there. And the unsaid part is, I'll feel better there. But that voice is not allowed to come out. And then she tells us, the readers, then he, the husband, took me in his arms and called me a blessed little goose and said he would go down to the cellar if I wished and have it whitewashed into the bargain. So he's bragging. He's not doing it. So straight away the downstairs means the cellar. Cellar is actually basement. So he says, I can even go to the basement and I'll get it whitewashed into the bargain. What does the bargain mean here? There is a kind of contract on which he has taken the building, a part of the building, and in that contract he will get the work, get the word entered, and then he'll get it whitewashed. So see the kind of pettiness that the man has regarding spending money on his wife who is seriously ill, as he understands it. The words highlighted, and this is my comment, the words highlighted in quotation say the opposite of his utterances. So I have highlighted the word into the bargain. So what is bargain doing here? Is the physician a shopkeeper? He must be a shopkeeper in his mind, because he is calculating the amount of money to be spent on giving some kind of succor, some kind of comfort and some kind of facility to the woman, and that is more important for him than to actually help his wife come back into the healthy system. The central point made in the story is regarding the model that all women of the time might adopt for gaining acceptance and validity. The model is that women will be guided by men, that women would take the line of treatment that the physician suggests, and somehow the physician is a male, and the physician doesn't know the internality of a woman, the way the woman's mind works. Already I've hinted, but later on I'll also make it clear to you that she is not happy in that room because the wallpaper is old, it's cracking, it's falling down, and when it falls down, then she has a poetic bent of mind, that's quite clear. Then there are images that emerge from the torn part, the bared part of the wall, and because she is all alone and she has to sleep in the night, and she has also to sometimes doze off during the day, and if she opens her eyes and sees those walls, with strange kind of faces, because those faces have been made by the tearing off of the wallpaper on the wall itself. So all that is to be, the only way the woman can regain her health is by rest, is a kind of expectation that males have, but this is wrong expectation. And she is given the model of a woman who will generally obey the dictates of her husband. So that's the kind of role that is being given to her. It's the model that she has to follow, and the model has nothing to do with her mental requirements. So that's the kind of cruelty to which the woman is subjected in the 19th century, partly, if not fully, because she doesn't have her own resources, she doesn't have her own power, and even the decisions that she has to take are to be taken by others on her behalf. So that's the central point of the story. So there is a complete helplessness. It's not neurasthenia, it is helplessness. It is isolation of the woman that is driving her crazy, and she understands it, and that's why the writer has given her the voice to interpret. Whose story is it? Of this woman. Who is telling it? This woman is telling it in the first person singular and using the word I. Therefore, one has to accept her version as the real version. This is what the writer is telling us again and again in every sentence that is there in the story. We become aware through the story that such a male-centered approach has reduced women to the level of slavery. It connects well with the central theme of the American Civil War that put a stop to slavery. So slavery was abolished in the latter half of the 19th century, but it was abolished only from the political system or the economic system. So far as society is concerned, a kind of slavery existed, and the slave part of the population was not just those slaves who came from elsewhere and were of different colors, but of women in America, and even the white women were being treated as slaves at that point of time. So see the irony. This time again it's ironical that civil war has ended, it has already abolished slavery from the system, and yet this particular woman, born in a middle class atmosphere, is still a slave. So there is a kind of an irony, and the woman is reduced to that level. This is the point that I am making, and I believe that this point will hold because the writer is entirely with the woman that she presents. The sense of alienation is projected in the story through the woman character. This is important because the writer could have thought of a man telling the story, but that would not have given the kind of authenticity, the validity to the character. Therefore, alienation is known, alienation is suffered by the woman, and she is talking about it herself. She doesn't relate to marriage, this is clear. So the married life is not hers in that sense. Already you have seen the dialogue in the story of the male, the husband, and who says, I know you know, that kind of sentence, and then he is certain and he doesn't care, and then he calls her dear goose. He's so endearing, and endearing only in words, but actually he's thinking of the bargain. So that kind of husband, she does not relate to marriage for that reason. Neighborhood. Neighbors also believe that women should be like this, and shared social life in general. Even in social life, women are facing neglect. So this is the kind of story, and that is actually the sum and substance of this particular fictional piece. This is achieved taking recourse to an ancient home. She is not kept in the normal surroundings of a locality in America, in a city where other people live. The other people interact with one another, and they enjoy, and they go shopping, and they go to parties, and they assemble at homes and discuss. That atmosphere is not given to this woman. So you take her to an ancient home, imposing and unapproachable. Nobody goes there because it's surrounded by roads, it's surrounded by parks, and people cannot enter it. It is more of a garden house. The woman finds herself stuck to the corner of it on the first floor, further alienated from the social life where she might take rest and relax. So rest and relax actually are forbidden. There is no rest in such a house. There is no relaxation in such a house. It is only loneliness, and she can't she can't sleep endlessly for 24 hours a day. So she will remain awake. She will look at the walls. She will look at the wallpaper. She will look at its color, and the color is fading, and the paper is coming off, and very strange shapes and figures are appearing to her in a half dreamy situation, and she is definitely constantly disturbed by that kind of atmosphere, and then finally nothing will happen, and she will remain there when the story ends. The building, described as a colonial mansion, symbolizes strangeness. It's a mansion. It's a building. It's a structure of the earlier period, and a ghostly existence, because naturally there's no other person in the house, in the room, except the woman. So it's a ghostly existence. Does it point towards a crumbling phenomenon where no vibrant life can be imagined? This is the question I raise, and the answer is yes. This is a crumbling phenomena. Things will not last for a long time, and maybe the woman also will become a part of the crumbling phenomenon. The protagonist is connected with the outside world through a few men who define life in their own terms, not making sense to the woman imprisoned in the building. So I'm choosing all these words that relate to her isolation, and I do so because this is how the author is allowing us to imagine the state of this woman. An elaborate description of the papered walls is on offer in the story. It attracts notice of the woman in an unearthly way. With the passage of time, the color of the paper has faded and turned yellow. Consequently, it has become a threat to the mind of the woman protagonist. So this is the conclusion that I reach at the end, that the story has details which actually reflect upon the mental state of the character presented in the story, and that the writer has done it remarkably well, because she has not given any statement about it, but she is only showing us as to how this woman is suffering. I'll then read this last part. I'll take 2 minutes to finish this. She cannot take her eyes off it. When she begins tearing and throwing the brittle paper and throwing it away, its remains on the wall assume horrifying shapes. The combination of the bare parts of the wall and the torn pieces of paper magnify the eerie effect yet further. Finally, the happenings on the wall enter the very soul of the woman. They make a place there and affect her mind. Later, it results in her acceptance of it as a part of life. On the other hand, the story reveals the superficiality and vacuous vision of the men handling her as a case. Their logic is of utility and functionality, and they cannot see beyond managing her as a problem. In conclusion, the yellow wallpaper stands as a sharp comment on capitalist living with no scope to provide mental comfort, solace, and joy. The sense of certainty leaves no scope to the community of males for earning sympathy, comfort, and love. The scene is too dreary and black to bear. So that, I believe, is the essence of the story, and it raises large number of questions, and so it solidly supports the cause of the women who actually suffer in life. Thank you.